when we hear the word alchemy, I mean, the image that usually springs to mind is some medieval figure huddled in a dark, smoky room. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Desperately trying to conjure a spell to turn a basic chunk of lead into gold.
Right. It's that classic quest for the Philosopher's Stone. But we've entirely, relegated that concept to the realm of magic and fantasy.
Oh, for sure. It feels completely divorced from how we understand the actual verifiable laws of the physical universe today, like thermodynamics or uh, biology or chemistry.
But imagine taking that core idea of transformation, of turning something raw and basic into something extraordinary, and just stripping away the magic. Imagine applying the cold, hard, inescapable logic of physics to it. And what if, instead of trying to transform a piece of metal, the thing you were trying to engineer was, like, human consciousness?
Well, that changes the paradigm completely, doesn't it? You move away from wishing for a supernatural event and step right into the realm of structural engineering. You start looking at spiritual elevation as a verifiable process with, like, strict cause and effect mechanics.
And that structural engineering is exactly the mission for our deep dive today. So welcome. We're so glad you're joining us for this one, because we are exploring a really fascinating, esoteric, spiritual text from 2006.
It really is unique.
It's titled Transcendence and Resurrection in Love, written by Deiform Buddha, and the translation was edited by Kinyalao. This document offers a rare glimpse into what the author explicitly calls an advanced practice.
Right, which is the kind of material that is normally kept strictly private.
Exactly. And our goal today is to unpack this incredibly unique framework. It basically argues that human consciousness, the environments we inhabit, and the concept of love aren't just abstract, poetic ideas. They are mechanical forces that literally dictate our reality.
The underlying premise here is remarkably pragmatic, honestly. It approaches spiritual growth with the same kind of rigid, systemic reasoning you'd find in, like, an agriculture manual.
Wow, an agriculture manual.
Yeah. The author is essentially arguing that reaching a higher state of being is not a mystical accident. It's a structural certainty, provided the math adds up.
Okay, let's unpack that math, because this framework grounds its grand spiritual concepts in the dirt. Literally in the dirt.
It really does.
The opening premise establishes a universal law, which is that all transformations require suitable conditions. And to prove this, the text unleashes this rapid-fire list of physical phenomena that are basically impossible to argue with.
It builds a very deliberate foundation of evidence based purely on the natural world before even touching on the human soul.
Yeah, the examples are incredibly vivid. Like, a seed can have all the genetic potential in the world, but it will only germinate if it's planted in the right soil.
Or an egg, right. It will only hatch if it's kept at a highly specific, sustained temperature.
Exactly. And vinegar only turns sour through a precise process of fermentation. Then the logic scales up to, like, physics and earth science.
Right, like particles generating energy only when they collide.
Yes, or thunder and lightning.
God.
They don't just echo through the sky randomly. They are born because storm clouds clash together. Coal and oil only form under immense suffocating heat and pressure. And massive tsunamis are only triggered by intense crustal movements on the ocean floor.
None of those natural events happen in a vacuum, you know?
Yeah.
The thunder doesn't just decide to exist.
Right.
The coal doesn't wish itself into being through sheer willpower. It's squeezed into existence by the mechanical pressure of the earth. The condition precedes the transformation.
Okay, so think about, like, baking a cake. You could have the most expensive, high-quality ingredients sitting on your kitchen counter. You could have the perfect recipe inherited from a master pastry chef.
But without the oven.
Exactly. Without the specific, sustained environmental condition of a hot oven, you don't get a cake. You just have a bowl of wet batter.
Yeah.
The heat is the non-negotiable catalyst.
That's a great analogy.
So how does this framework bridge those raw physical phenomena to the human experience?
By applying that exact same physical law to human development. So, just as the Earth's relentless pressure creates coal, this philosophy dictates that exceptional talents are forged through life's trials.
Oh.
Yeah. Just as the oven bakes the cake, the text argues that without the right conditions, raw iron cannot become steel.
So we are the raw iron in this scenario.
Precisely. But here's the critical philosophical pivot. In nature, those conditions, you know, the heat, the pressure, the fertile soil, they often just happen by chance.
Right. A seed might just get lucky and fall on soft earth.
Exactly. But for a human being seeking higher spiritual transformation, relying on chance is completely insufficient.
Yeah.
This framework introduces the concept of having the wisdom to create conditions.
Meaning we aren't supposed to just, like, sit around waiting for the universe to casually drop us into the oven. We have to actively build the oven.
The text provides clear examples of this intentional creation. An artist looks at an ordinary gnarled tree root and creates the conditions to carve it into a masterpiece.
Or a gardener taking wild grass and shaping it into classical forms.
Yes. Or scientists engineering highly specific artificial conditions to send fragile humans into the vacuum of space. The takeaway is that high-level transformation is an active, engineered process. It requires agency.
Which introduces a rather intense shift in how we are supposed to view our daily reality, I think. Because once we move from physical conditions like heat and pressure to mental and environmental conditions, this philosophy takes a very firm, uncompromising stance.
It really does. It doesn't pull punches.
It acknowledges that we live in a world full of right and wrong, a world packed with contentious people. But it claims that unhappy families or toxic environments don't just exist randomly as bad luck.
Right.
They are actively created by unhappy individuals.
It's an entirely inside-out approach to reality. The argument is that each person's current external state is shaped by their own internal consciousness. You aren't a victim of your environment. Your environment is a mirror of your frequency.
So if you want to achieve freedom, joy, and happiness, this framework demands that you must possess the consciousness of freedom, joy, and happiness first.
Yes, the consciousness has to come first.
Only then do you go out and seek the environments that foster those qualities. To illustrate this, there are a couple of very specific examples of how environments lock in that transformation once the initial step is taken.
Like the country bumpkin example.
Yeah. There's the scenario of a country bumpkin who goes to study in a big city for 4 years. The immersion in that new environment completely changes their physical appearance and aura.
And similarly, an ordinary girl who immerses herself in the arts for 4 years will naturally develop an elegant demeanor. The environment shapes the person, but the person had to choose to enter the environment.
Exactly.
It creates a self-reinforcing feedback loop. You cultivate the consciousness, you place yourself in the corresponding environment, and that environment then heavily reinforces and refines the consciousness until the transformation is permanent.
Okay. But if you're hearing this, you're probably spotting the massive chicken and egg problem here. Because I certainly did.
Oh, absolutely.
How can someone just magically have a joyful consciousness if they are currently stuck in a miserable, contentious environment?
It's a tough ask.
Like, if a person's daily life is a toxic workplace or a deeply unhappy home that is actively causing them stress, how do they generate the frequency of joy out of thin air to escape it? It feels like telling a drowning person to simply possess the consciousness of a dry towel.
That is the most natural pushback to this philosophy, and it's one the framework anticipates by leaning heavily on that previous.
So the blueprint has to be meticulously drafted before a single brick can be laid. The architect doesn't need to be in a beautiful building to draw one.
Exactly. The physical environment cannot be changed until the internal blueprint is altered. The new consciousness is the seed.
Ah, going back to the seed.
Right. But tying it back to the very first law we discussed, a seed still needs the right soil to survive. So the directive is clear. You must generate the seed of joyful consciousness internally, despite your surroundings.
And then use your wisdom to actively migrate to or build the soil where that seed can actually take root and thrive.
That's the process.
But drafting that internal blueprint is useless if you don't know what you're actually trying to build. What is the ultimate destination this framework is pushing us toward? Because this isn't just like a self-help guide about being a little happier at work.
No, not at all.
The stakes are presented as cosmic.
The ultimate goal is ascending to literal higher realms of existence. The text explicitly names these destinations. There's the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Celestial Islands continent of the Elysium world.
The Celestial Islands continent of the Elysium world. That paints an incredible picture.
It really does.
But arriving there requires more than just being a generally pleasant person. Remember the absolute requirement for soil and temperature. To reach these higher realms, to transform from a mortal into a celestial being, you need a very specific incubator.
A specialized environment called Lifechanyuan.
Yes, Lifechanyuan.
And Lifechanyuan is presented as an essential mechanism, not just a casual community. It requires 2 non-negotiable conditions. First, you must have a guide. Second, you need the collective atmosphere created by the continuous efforts of Chanyuan celestials.
Which is a group of people operating collectively on that necessary high frequency. And the warning attached to this is stark. Without these basic conditions present in Lifechanyuan, raw potential is entirely meaningless.
Right, it doesn't matter how much potential you have.
You could be a swan egg. You could be the seed of a towering, magnificent tree. But without the right temperature and soil, you will just dry out and perish in the sun. It's an uncompromising view of spiritual physics. Your potential does not matter if your environment cannot sustain it.
And to explain exactly why this specific environment is so critical, the author introduces the concept of a non-material life structure.
Okay, this part is wild.
It is. The assertion is that the core of any life form and the objective quality of its existence is entirely determined by its structure.
Which leads to what is arguably the most unexpected and jarring analogy I've ever encountered in a spiritual document. To explain the invisible non-material life structure of a human soul, the text uses macroeconomics.
Yes.
It explicitly acknowledges this as an imperfect analogy, but then it goes ahead and compares the economic development of the United States, China, and Zimbabwe.
It is a profoundly striking comparison, precisely because it removes all the mystical romance from spiritual growth. The framework claims that the varying levels of economic prosperity between these three nations are not due to their historical timelines,
Right.
nor are they due to the inherent quality of the people living there. The differences are caused entirely by the management structures of these respective countries.
Comparing geopolitical resource management to individual spiritual architecture is, it's wild, but it makes an uncomfortable amount of sense.
It really tracks with their structural approach.
It basically argues that if Zimbabwe wants to become a highly developed, prosperous nation, it cannot simply wish for it. It can't just hope for better luck. It has to fundamentally, systematically improve its national management structure.
Exactly.
And by that exact same logic, if a mortal human being wants to ascend and become a celestial being, a Buddha or a god, they cannot just pray for it. They must fundamentally, systematically improve their life structure.
And when you break down what a national management structure actually is, the analogy perfectly illustrates the author's point. A country's structure is its laws, its resource allocation, its justice system, its daily operational protocols. A human being's non-material life structure is composed primarily of consciousness. Our internal management structure dictates how we allocate our mental energy, how we regulate our emotions, what our core beliefs are, and how we react to friction.
So if my internal management structure is chaotic, corrupt, or wildly inefficient, my spiritual economy is going to collapse.
You'll be bankrupt.
I won't have the resources to ascend anywhere.
The impartial, almost clinical presentation of this country analogy proves that spiritual growth isn't about accumulating magic points or pleasing a deity. It is about the structural reform of the self. To become a celestial being, we must audit, cultivate, and reform the foundational laws of our own consciousness.
Which forces the most important question of this entire deep dive.
Yeah.
What exactly are we supposed to be cultivating?
Right, what's the actual material?
If consciousness is the blueprint and the life structure is the building, what is the building material? And the framework provides a definitive, measurable answer. The core component of advanced life consciousness is love.
Love is established here as the ultimate objective metric of existence. It is not presented as a fleeting emotion. It is presented as a structural element, almost like a law of spiritual gravity or a measure of density.
And the rule is incredibly simple and it scales perfectly. The higher the life form, the higher the content of love in its consciousness. The lower the life form, the lower the content of love.
It's measurable.
It is. You could theoretically sample a life form's consciousness the way a metallurgist measures the amount of carbon in a piece of steel. More carbon means stronger steel. More love means a higher life form.
And the author challenges the reader to verify this metric in their own daily observations. Just conduct a simple survey of your surroundings. Look closely at an unhappy, toxic family. You will inevitably find that the structural integrity of that family is failing because they lack love. Conversely, observe a truly happy family, and you will find all members are filled with it. The structure holds because the material is sound.
So if the essence of life is its structure, and the structure is made of consciousness, and consciousness is measured by the sheer volume of love it contains, then the only mathematical way to level up your existence is to increase your love content.
That's the only way the math works.
The text states that advanced practice must start with love. First, by recognizing it, then understanding it, grasping its essence, and finally, and most importantly, practicing it.
Which brings the framework back to the necessity of Lifechanyuan. It is described not just as an intentional community, but as a paradise of love and an ocean of love.
An ocean of love.
The author states they set the example through their own daily words and actions and encourages every individual to actively participate in the physical and spiritual construction of this environment.
But there is a strange, almost counterintuitive paradox here regarding how we actually build this community. The text talks about actively participating in the construction of Lifechanyuan, pouring your energy into it. But then the author writes, I do not focus on the results of Lifechanyuan's construction. Whether there are results is not very important.
Decoupling the physical action from the physical outcome is a profound philosophical stance. It removes the ego from the equation of building a paradise.
The framework insists that what truly matters is the process. Practicing love lies entirely in the act of doing, not in the monument you build at the end. Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about going to the gym.
Okay, yeah.
You have a heavy piece of iron on the floor. You pick it up, you struggle with it, and you put it back down. The physical result of the weight moving from point A to point B is totally meaningless.
The universe doesn't care that the barbell is now 3 feet higher in the air.
Exactly. What actually matters, the only thing that fundamentally changes your physical structure is the muscle fiber you are tearing and rebuilding in the process of struggling with that weight. The practice is the entire point.
That is the perfect way to conceptualize it. Tearing and redeeming that spiritual muscle fiber is how you change your non-material life structure. Bringing the entire narrative full circle, participating in the construction of Lifechanyuan is essentially the act of tilling the soil and regulating the temperature that we discussed at the very beginning.
Ah, I see.
By focusing entirely on the process of building this community of love, individuals are utilizing their wisdom to create conditions. They are generating the heat needed to hatch their own spiritual swan egg.
But what about the rest of the world? The author does address those who are not currently living in this specialized incubator of Lifechanyuan.
They do, yes.
The text concedes that you can technically practice love in your daily work, your study, and your regular life out in society. But it comes with a major, sobering caveat. In the environment of the secular world, love is simply too scarce.
It's a harsh reality check.
Because the baseline environment is so devoid of this essential building material, it makes it incredibly difficult to actually express or practice it without that energy being instantly drained or corrupted.
It's a cohesive, practical argument. If you want to become a master of marine biology, you don't pitch a tent in the middle of the Sahara Desert and hope for the best, you know?
Right, you go to the ocean.
Exactly. If you want to cultivate enough love to restructure your soul and ascend to the celestial islands, you have to migrate to an environment where love is the primary abundant resource.
Let us transcend and resurrect in love. That is the rallying cry used to close out the main body of this philosophy. But the historical context of how this highly guarded structural manual actually reached the public is just as fascinating and, honestly, profoundly more human than the cosmic math itself.
The closing dedication provides a sudden burst of emotional grounding for everything we've just spent time unpacking.
Yeah. As we established at the start, this is an advanced practice. The author notes that this specific content is generally kept completely secret, meant only for those already deep in the work.
Right.
But the text reveals that on May 10th, 2006, the author made a conscious exception to that rule. They were deeply inspired by someone named Tongsen Celestial. Specifically, the author was moved because 3 sisters named Tongsen, Konglong, and Alien all arrived at Lifechanyuan at the exact same time.
And in the context of a framework that values the active, intentional creation of conditions, the author interpreted the simultaneous arrival of these 3 sisters as a profound, undeniable reflection of their love for Lifechanyuan.
Wow, yeah.
They didn't just possess the blueprint, they actively migrated to the soil.
To honor that dedication, to thank them for that love, the author decided to leak their own esoteric manual to the public.
Yeah.
The text states this knowledge will undoubtedly illuminate countless people who are lost on the path of practice and cultivation, helping them find clarity in the mechanics of their own souls.
That's beautiful.
The entire piece is formally dedicated to the 3 sisters of Konglong and their parents. It's a beautiful moment of human connection that broke open a cosmic secret.
It is a deeply personal origin story for a document that deals with such massive, sweeping mechanics. And while the text speaks very specifically about the Lifechanyuan community as the ultimate destination, the underlying architecture it describes is universal.
Totally.
The idea of auditing your own life structure, the absolute necessity of aligning your internal blueprint with your external reality, and the active, relentless pursuit of environments that foster joy rather than contention, these are mechanical laws you can apply to the reality of your own daily life right now.
It fundamentally changes how you look at the spaces you spend your time in, the people you surround yourself with, and the baseline frequency you bring into those spaces. Which leaves a final, lingering question for you to mull over.
Okay, what is it?
Well, the framework claims that the secular world is a harsh, barren environment where love is too scarce to properly express, necessitating a separate, specialized paradise, like Lifechanyuan.
Right, we covered that.
But if consciousness truly dictates the environment, as the author also firmly established, could an individual, or group of individuals, with an advanced enough life structure theoretically transform the secular world itself into an ocean of love, just by existing in it and projecting their blueprint outward?
Oh, wow. That is the ultimate paradox of the true structural engineer. Do you build a bunker to escape the storm, or do you build a machine to change the weather?
Something to think about the next time you find yourself trying to grow a garden in the desert.